Hi, my name is Bjoern and this is Bev Live. Welcome everybody on a Friday evening. Happy St. Patrick's Day. What a day. A day usually that is about beer, green beer, or any kind of good Irish beer. But there's also wine to be had. So we'll obviously, as we always do, talk about wine. And we're going to continue the series that we started last week, where we talked about different topics. Ask me anything. Last week we talked about wine decanting. We talked about the types of different glasses one can use. We talked about wine temperature, how to serve wine. So if you're interested in those topics, check out last week's episode. And also, while you're there, check out all the cool wines we have. We have some amazing wines here on Bev Live. So check them all out and buy whatever you like. 3 bottles is something that you need to purchase to get free shipping, and we now ship to many states. So check it out. Some amazing wines there. So without further ado, we'll get to the show. Wine topics, ask me anything. Today I put a few interesting topics together. Start off with vintages. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Do we care? So vintages in wine are not the year basically the wine is put into bottle. Vintages that you see on the bottle are basically based on the year where the grapes were harvested. So the winery, let's say, picks those grapes in, let's say, September. Starts all the processes that one needs to do in the winery and starts making the wine. Then at some point the wine goes into, if it does, into a barrel, and eventually the wine gets bottled. But so the winery then needs to put a date on, or they don't have to put a date, but if they want to have a vintage wine, they will then put the vintage on that wine, and it is the year that the grapes were harvested. So why does that matter? Why does it matter? Why should we even put this on the bottle? It matters because wine is a natural product, and every year is a little bit different. So what you have, especially with smaller wineries who cannot adapt to who don't want to adapt for a variety of reasons to the difference in weather. So like sometimes it's a hot year, which then means the fruit gets very, very ripe, and that then impacts the flavors and the style of the wine. Or you have a cooler year, acidity is higher. It's really a cool product, and that's why sometimes people care what vintage of one of their favorite wines that they buy. One year may be a bad vintage, one year may be a really, really good vintage. So that means when you find your wine that you really, really like, and it's a vintage wine, you may like next year's better, may like it worse. You may go like, oh my God, this was so great last year. What happened? Well, it's a different vintage, it's a different wine, it's a natural product, and it should be different. How much, next question, how much should I spend on wine? It's a topic that a lot of people have in mind when purchasing wines. How much should I spend on wine? What price point does it make sense for me to buy this bottle? Should I have a price point? Price point or the amount somebody spends on a bottle of wine and the quality of wines do not always correlate. Just because you're spending more money on a bottle of wine doesn't mean that it's going to be better. And even if it's better, you may not like it better. It may be like technically the better wine, or the experts say, wow, this is the most amazing wine in the world. And you go like, oh, really? No, I don't think so. There's not always a correlation between price of what you're spending for the wine and the quality and or how much you are going to like it. I mean, one question I get a lot is, Bjoern, like, what's a good wine? What should I have with this food? And And what should I have with this food? And while I can answer that question, at the end of the day, it comes down to, what do you like? A lot of people like a little bit of sugar in their wine. They don't even realize that the wines that they drink have a higher sugar percentage. They think they're drinking a dry wine. But that's kind of how, the taste buds are, and they're just like a little bit sweeter. There's a saying that goes like, people talk dry and drink sweet. And anyway, that's getting slightly off the topic. How much should I spend on wine? It depends. You really just need to learn of what you like, and then you go to stores like Bev Live and ask us, get in contact with us and ask us like, hey, I like this wine. What else would you recommend? Get in contact with us, and we'll make sure we'll let you know what we believe would be the best next wine to purchase. Complexity is another topic that I hear people talk a lot about a lot. How complex is a wine? And what does that mean? Basically the best way to say this is that if you drink a wine and it has it's very linear, like one flavor, it's not very complex. What you really want in wine and in any beverage for that matter, or in food, is to have all kinds of different things going on. And that's kind of when people talk about complexity in wine, that's what they're talking about. It's not like just one thing that defines this wine. It's, it starts off like this and then it changes and it finishes like this. And that's kind of what makes wine so incredibly exciting, at least for me. Balance. And I talk about to people a lot about balance. And what does that mean? Balance is basically when everything kind of comes together and it works well together. So you have your acid, you have your tannins, you have your your complexity for that matter. You have your how fruity the wine is. You have the use of oak, and it kind of all plays together. And in many ways, even if you don't know much about wine, you actually, and you do like cooking, you actually understand this concept, because that's kind of exactly how cooking works. For example, you do want to use salt in most meals that you make, but you don't want to drop the salt shaker and have it all salty. So you definitely don't want that. So it's a, like the saying goes, it's a balance, and that's what makes wine exciting. Again, complexity, balance. Lots of stuff going on, and they actually do work together. That then now travels into, and I mentioned, food and wine pairings. Not all food and wines go together. Some work, some don't, and it's sometimes a little bit tricky to figure that out. White wine, high acid wine, for example, work really well with fish. But then you also have like a lighter style wine, like a Beaujolais or a Pinot Noir, that would very well go with seafood. And then you go into like certain meats where you go like, okay, that Pinot Noir is probably not the best choice. I want something with a little more muscle, a little bit bigger. Then you go to like Cabernet Sauvignon, Shiraz, Sangiovese. Kind of go into that direction. So it's not always easy to say this is going to work with this. Sometimes it's like a trial and error kind of thing. There's certain obvious things that do and do not work. In general, though, if you look for lighter style foods, maybe stick with the white wine so they don't overpower the food. That's really one. It's like so many people, they get these like delicate dishes, and delicate, I mean the most positive way, and they get like, okay, I have this fancy, delicate, most amazing dish in front of me. What am I going to drink with? Oh, I really like Napa Caps, so I'm going to have a Napa Cap with it. And that may just not necessarily the best wine for it. You may want to go an Oregon Pinot Noir, for example. So yeah, that's something that you just need to be aware of. You do not want to overpower the food. Then the last topic for today I have is oak barrels. So oak barrels, the history here is back in the day when we didn't have wine in glass, or in cans for that matter. like I'm talking about like hundreds of years ago, we put them into barrels. And while that makes sense from a logistics perspective, it also provided actually, and I'm sure this is coincidence, but anyway, it provided a really interesting vessel to use and age the wine before, no, I'm talking about today, before we put it into bottle. And using oak barrels is incredibly helpful for especially red wine, but also like certain white wines like Chardonnay, because they impact the texture for one, but they also impact the amount of how can I put this? The air that goes into the wine, because a barrel is not completely closed, the oxygen still gets into the wine, so the wine develops as is in there, and it also has like flavors like vanilla, smoke, different impacts on the flavor. So it does two things: it impacts the flavor, the structure, and it kind of softens up the wine a little bit. That's why you see the use of oak barrels in wine, and that's why it works so well. Again, come back to the cooking part. Like it's like salt, in my opinion. You do not want to completely overpower the wine with all that oak. So I always tell people using oak in wine is like using sugar. I'm sorry, it's like using salt in cooking. You do want to use a little bit, but you do not want to use a huge amount, because in the wine part, if you just taste, and people call it like a woody wine, when it overpowers the fruit and it overpowers the wine in general, you go, and I'll come back to the balance part. You don't have a balanced wine. So those are my topics for today. As always, get in contact with us if you have any questions. If you have any topics for next week, get in contact with us, ask us anything. We'll be here. Also, I ask our BevBot on the platform about all kinds of questions that you have for wine. With that, I wish all of you a happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a good time, and I'll see you next week. Bye.